right, hello guys again. So part of our project was to make pinch pots, and now we are at the point where we have to attach them. So to make that lidded vessel, I wanted you guys to come up with a plan on connecting two pinch pots. So you were supposed to make two pinch pots that were of relatively the same size as much as possible, and we are going to attach them like so. Um, there's all kinds of possibilities for attaching these pinch pots as well. So if you have a different idea that you want to do, you can always run it by me. I'm always flexible with the assignments. So if you wanted to do what if you wanted to attach like 3 of your pinch pots together and make it like a giant acorn sculpture. So you would add like something on the inside of here to make it look like acorn. So you'd have this giant like 3-piece pinch pot, piece put together. You'd attach these and, whatever you want to make. Let me know if it's different than the lidded vessel. I am open to ideas, okay? But if you're going with the lidded vessel project, you are going to be taking your 2 pinch pots and you're going to be attaching them like so. This is going to get me an egg shape, an oval. If you wanted it to be more of a sphere, you could take these and trim off, they would probably take 3/4 of an inch to trim off here, and the same thing on the other side, so that they would become a more perfect sphere. If you don't like the oval shape, you can kind of play around with, like, if you want to just trim that lip off a little bit. That's up to you. I'm just going to do it as is, make this potato shape. We're going to do the score and slip and attach these together, okay? All right, so first step is make sure that we have them so that they look like they're going to attach in the right spot. If I really wanted to get fussy, I could, and not fussy, particular, if you prefer, like less work later. I don't have an issue with like having a little bit of gap. I'll just fill that in with a coil. But if you really want to make that a smooth edge and attach it so that there's less of a gap, you can do that. I'm just going to attach as is so I can show you guys how you can fix that, okay? So second step, I guess, is to score that edge. So wherever we're going to be attaching these 2 pieces is where it has to be scored. You have to score and slip. So scoring is the act of scratching the surface of your clay. And what that does is it opens up that clay body, that surface, and allows moisture to absorb into this leather hard piece. The idea being that when you put the slip in there and you put that coil of clay, the plastic clay, the moisture is going to be able to travel between the 2 pieces and exchange moisture content between the 2 and making it one solid piece of clay. It'll become one piece, essentially, because they will share the same amount of moisture content. So I'm just kind of going through here. You could use a fork for this. It might go faster than the needle tool because this only scratches one line at a time. So a fork might be a good idea to really scratch up that surface. You can see I really roughed it up. Don't be afraid to really scratch that surface. You don't want to go too deep because that's just more that you have to like clean up, but you don't want to just do like little dips. Like if I were to do like that wouldn't be enough for it to, well, I guess that would be okay. You want to make sure that you go enough that it is going to kind of like pull that moisture in. Just scratch this up a little bit more here, get all the way around. All right, so you can see now, those are the rims of the bowls are scratched up, they're scored. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the slip that I made. I showed you guys how to make your own slip earlier. I'm going to take my slip and I'm going to go around where I scored the edge there, that surface. And I am going to liberally apply the slip. So don't worry about applying too much. If it's really watery, maybe you don't want to add too much because it's just going to get really messy. But you want enough that it's going to, that moisture is going to travel between the two pieces. That's the whole point, right? Right, so I've got my two pieces. They've been scored and they've been slipped. So now what I'm going to do, and I could take a thin coil of plastic clay and put it in between, like run it along the rim of my bowl and then squish it together. These are pretty soft yet, soft leather clay. If they were a little bit drier, I might do that just to be on the safe side, but I think these are fine because I just made these yesterday, so they're leather hard, but they're not borderline bone dry. All right, so I'm just kind of like, I just squished them together, tried to line up the rims, and you can see there's that little dip there. What I'm going to do to reinforce that attachment is to make a coil and run it along that where we connected the two, okay? So I'll show you guys. I'm going to take a fresh piece of clay here. And it's easier to do on your wear board than on like a tabletop. Any smooth surface like this, the clay will most likely stick to. And that can get kind of frustrating. So you can use your wear board to make your coil. And try to use the whole length of your hand when you're making your coils. Just makes a more consistent thickness. And we'll get to that once we start doing the coil building hand technique as well. But really, it's like when you're a little kid and you make those snakes with Play-Doh. To roll out a nice coil. It doesn't have to be real thick because it's just on the surface of my piece here. So I could come in here. I think I'm going to score a little bit more here. I don't think this is necessary, but just to be on the safe side, just lightly score on the outside here, kind of across that seam. In my mind, it doesn't hurt to do a little extra score and slip. So take my slip. This time I'll just add a little bit because there's already slip in there. I don't need it to get real messy. All right. So now I'm going to take this coil. I'm just going to kind of press it in there. I'm kind of pushing these together as I'm pushing in the center because right now this is still a vulnerable seam. I don't want to push too hard because then my thumb will probably just go right through it. So I'm kind of just pushing holding it here. So I'm pushing the two together so they're compressing at the seam. And then just kind of like lightly pressing that coil into that seam. All right, so you can see I've gotten all the way around. I'm just going to pinch off that extra. At this point, you can take whatever modeling tool you have in your bag. I know there's like some of you got the plastic ones, some of you got these wood ones. You can even take like the edge of a fork or a knife. I like these rounded edges of these wooden pieces, these wooden tools. Or you can even just use your finger at this point. Whatever works for you, whatever you prefer. And I'm just going to kind of blend this in. And again, like when we were making the actual pinch pots, don't worry too much about the surface at this point. We can always come back in when this has kind of become one piece and the moisture has traveled between the two and the whole piece is leather hard. And you don't have like this weak seam. You can come back in and clean up that surface when it's all leather hard. So I'm pulling off some of this extra clay that I don't really need. A little excess there. Just trying to make sure that I get enough of that coil kind of pushed into that seam and kind of smoothing out so it disguises that seam a little bit. Okay. So at this point, I have smoothed out that coil, kind of disguising the seam. There's still a little bit of evidence of that seam there. But like I said, I would wait until it's leather hard to really reshape it. You can come in with this and kind of like lightly smooth it out. But I wouldn't go, too hard on it until it has settled itself. So let it sit for a few hours or overnight in a bag. I would put it in a bag without spraying extra water on it so that it does become leather hard. If you add moisture to it, it's just going to stay that plastic stage. So let it air out a little bit. One other thing I wanted to point out too is all these little pieces of clay that kind of got pulled off or shaved off the outside. You don't need to throw these away. You can either put them back in with your plastic clay, or if you're starting to run low on your slip, even if they're not bone dry, this is like, there's enough water in here. I could just kind of break these up into small pieces, stir them in, and then overnight they will just become part of your slip. If you do find that your slip is becoming kind of too thick, you don't like it like that, just add some more water to it, let it sit, stir it the next day. Clay is very, you can recycle it most of the time until it's been glaze fired. There's always use for clay. Even the bisque fired stuff can be ground down and turned into grog, which is used in clay for making sculptures that need a stronger body to hold weight. So, but yeah, make sure you reuse these little shavings. Throw them in your slip. Don't throw them in the garbage can. All right, so at this point I have attached 2 pinch pots to make this kind of egg shape. What you make with this, up to you. We will talk about cutting a lid into this. I'm going to let this sit for a while, become leather hard before I cut the lid. But we'll talk about the different types of lids you can make, and what else you can do with this. If you wanted to make this more sculptural, you can always attach more pieces to it. So if you wanted like feet or a handle or something like that, or if you wanted to make this like a sculpture, you could, attach this to another pinch pot, all kinds of things. So what you do with your attached pinch pots is up to you. You have a lot of freedom in the creative route you take, okay? So if you have any questions about this, let me know. Again, wrap this up kind of loosely in your plastic bag. Let it breathe a little bit. When you cut that lid, we can kind of clean up the inside of it. But yeah, that's it. Let me know if you have questions. All right. Thanks, guys.